Hey everybody, how's it going? Hey Robbo, what up?
Hey, everything's going. As you know, we're in the middle of a move, so we're getting everything ready or whatnot. And good news, Mr. Bruce, I was supposed to call you today and let you know that we moved everything up. We will be in Florida that first week right after Easter.
That's
So
awesome.
this is coming quick now, things like that. So we're constantly in that. What do we forget? What are we not doing? Oh, we got to set this up. Oh, it'd be good if I called my old doctor to see if we could come back, you
Right.
know, things, things like that,
Schedule appointments so that
Yeah.
when you get down here, you've got them already scheduled and you can establish your them as your primary now. Yeah.
Yeah. And all this fun stuff, and then getting enough prescriptions, into Walgreens so I can make sure I have some enough till he gets me in, blah, 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 blah. It's everything, you know?
For 90
So,
days, please. Yeah, I feel you. Look who's
so,
here. Everybody's here. Donna, Cynthia.
wow.
Thought I
Hey,
saw
everybody.
Bruce, Gillian. I didn't see Deborah. Well, maybe not.
See who?
Deborah. I think I'm just seeing Donna. I'm scanning. Yeah, Donna, Gillian, Cynthia, and Bruce right now.
Hello, ladies. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Gillian says she's
And gentleman. Yeah.
Gentleman. Up there she is. Hey, Deborah. I knew I saw her.
Okay. Hey, Deborah. Welcome in. See, we were all worried about you. We wanted to know where our Deborah was. So, let's see what's happening.
Yeah.
So that's our big thing. That's happening. We're dealing with that. We've already given away a bunch of stuff we're not taking. So things like that, and trying to get it all, set up and ready to go or whatnot. So
yeah,
that is and actually it's a good segue into our topic tonight. Whenever we move into something new or we're trying to do, we're skeptical about what people tell us. We're double checking, we're finding things out or whatnot. Okay. Does that sound too good to be true? Let's check it out. Let's see what happens. What's the downside? What's somebody not telling me, or all that. So,
yeah, I hear you. Because if it's too good to be true, it probably is, right?
A lot of times, and it's sad that we've gotten into a cynical place where it's our society. And I think we're there with the government, with people, the sales people, things like that. It's like we've learned as a society to, be very cautious. We can't.
You don't think there's a difference between cynicism and skepticism?
Yes. Oh, yes. Like your statement, what is it? If it's too good to be true, it probably is. That would be cynical.
Right.
I think I would see that as a cynical statement. Skepticism is
trust and verify, right?
Yeah. I don't take anything at face value.
Right.
All right. That's being a skeptic and saying, okay, let me check this. All right. And as long as things are starting to check out, then can I trust? All right. Can I go out on a limb? Am I willing to go out on a limb and say, okay, this is everything I'm checking is panning out. Let's go ahead and pull the trigger. And I think you bring up a good point, because the cynical person will get like, no, I'm not pulling the trigger. And next thing you know, it's like you're stuck in this habit of not making a decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I think the cynical person would not be, I'm not pulling the trigger. The cynical person would be more like, there's no point in pulling the trigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas the skeptic would be like, what could it hurt to take that shot?
Right.
Exactly. You have a 50-50 chance, right? And the cynic would be like, well, there's no point in even taking the shot because it just seems so out of this world or unrealistic, right?
And I'm going to tell you what, it's something that it just was either given to me or came to me. Do you think that's where people have used the word skeptic, which has negative connotations to it most of the time, okay, to say, oh, well, you're just skeptical about everything, you're skeptical, okay? And if you're talking about religion, if you're talking about faith in somebody or whatnot, they use that to kind of drive down any beliefs that aren't tangible, that you can't reach out and touch or whatnot. Well, nope, I don't believe anything. Well, like you said, that's kind of gets to be cynical, and because you ask questions, I don't feel that's
Right.
skeptical.
So,
it's verifying.
Right. So I think skepticism has more of a connotation when you think about it to be it's like a naysayer, right?
Right.
But I think you've got to sort of question those things that are not tangible because, I mean, so if we didn't question if we just followed blindly, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. I'd be in a Catholic church, you'd be in a Baptist church, I'm sure people in the audience would be in their church or following whatever it is that they were brought up in, provided it wasn't like paganism or Wiccan or whatever. But even Wiccans are very like, this is it. This is like the rule of the land.
Right.
And, you can't do this on this day. You have to wait for this day, or this can only be done during this moon or whatever. There are some out there who are very like,
by the law.
Yeah.
And it's whose law? And, so that might be another way to look at it is when you become skeptical. All right. Wow. I'm getting all this like deep insight here at the last minute. Is that your intuition, the moon and the high priestess with personal knowledge, when your intuition goes, something here doesn't sound right. Okay. I'm not saying you're an idiot. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but I want some vibe is not right.
Spidey senses going, and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel like it may be partially what you're trying to sell me, but I don't feel like it may be 100%.
Right. And Cynthia makes a good point. Wicca has become a religion where you got to follow this law, or whoever founded Wiccan or whatnot and everything. And, I've said all along, one of the reasons our country's in the trouble is we've got nobody we trust. We don't have a trusted news source. They're all spinning their own tail. Every one of them have been caught putting in bogus footage of different things, footage that's years old, some different incident or whatnot. Right. There's no saint in the media out there. And that increases it lets us be more skeptical. And I don't know that there's anything wrong with being skeptical. It just means I'm going to check and see what facts I can find. Okay.
Right.
And that's where, I'm constantly checking biblical, what's reported to be biblical fact. I'm constantly looking at it. One of the things I would encourage people, though, is to remember when you're actually checking something and you want to fact check something, you cannot use one source. And that's where get it from person's point of view A, person's point of view V, okay? And where's all this coming from, okay? Because that's the whole thing. Because everything like this right now is so algorithm driven. The news I may see on my feed is completely different than the news you may see on your feed if we're not settled on the same thing.
I don't know. My news is puppies and kittens and baby goats. What's your news?
Whatever's getting the longest thing. And so therefore, if I stop, if something catches my eye, because I'm like squirrel, and I start watching it, and to prove this, then think about it. Your algorithm gets filled with that same thing over and over and over again. So what I will do, if I really want this, I will intentionally go look up an opposing point of view. Okay. So now all of a sudden my feed's getting fed with that. And I can start going, okay, you know what? This and this, they met in the middle, and I can take all the outside fluff and do away with it,
Oh, yeah. You have to reprogram my algorithm because when all that crap, that Epstein crap broke, I was following like the stories that people were extracting from the files and everything else, and all of a sudden for days, all it was all that shit, and it was so awful, just the stuff coming across, that I was like, I gotta just not be. So like I intentionally started like searching for puppies and baby animals and
again, we already know you're listening,
Day projects.
I've got a broken tooth, and I've mentioned it on here once or twice. We all know we're dealing with that. Okay. Now all of a sudden in some of my feeds, I've got how to fix a broken tooth. I haven't searched any of this shit,
Right.
Dentures, implants, and oh no, you're not listening to us at all, that type of thing. And I was telling Gillian there was something she and I were talking about in the car, and the only thing we had was our phones. Okay. And babe, if you can pop in there, if you can remember what that was, it's something that we were talking about, again, completely off pace. And all of a sudden I'm getting bombarded with this crap. And I'm like going, what the hell?
It's like the Bruce and I dozens of times. We'll be standing in the living room having a conversation, and nobody will be online doing anything. And then the next thing you know, you pick up your phone and there's ads for whatever, Starbucks or whatever,
whatever you were talking about.
I need tires. I got to get tires. And then you pick up your phone and there's like an ad for Firestone and an ad for Goodyear and an ad for all these freaking places. It's like, all right, dude, come on. I usually cuss. She must not be named out. I'll cuss her out, and she'll tell me she doesn't need my attitude.
There's a new ad about that right now, and I love it. But there was something Gillian and I were talking about in the car, and then I went on Amazon to look up something else, and you know how it breaks down, things you've been interested in or whatnot. And there's a damn thing, and I've never searched it, never asked about it, but it's sitting in my, your interests. And I'm like going,
well, if you Googled it for any reason.
I hadn't. It was something we were talking about in the car. And then I went to go look at like furniture or something for the move. And there it's sitting in, your interests. And I'm like, how did you know I think it might have been something like an indoor grill or something like that, but I never searched it, So, so that's, there's all the more reasons that we're skeptic these days. Okay. Because AI has more of a hold on us than what even many of us want to admit. Like, no, it can't be. Yeah. And so we're still not done seeing AI's damage. Everybody's, this is the greatest thing. Just like they did, when they boarded the Titanic,
Right.
This ship will never be sunk. Bloop.
AI's terrifying because it's to the point now where you almost can't tell what's real and what's not. And
correct.
And what's frightening about that is, that can put you in a place where you've never in and then have you, on the hook for something that you never were involved with,
Right.
So,
You're absolutely right. And again, that whole the AI has gotten so good. A lot of people will look at these different 60-second feeds. All right. Oh, that's the news. And if you really start looking at it, you might go, because some of this, usually we can look at AI and go, that was AI.
right.
They're getting that perfected so much that
Right.
now, and then you can slap in, anything you want and even slap a news logo on it. Okay. And people think it's gospel.
Yep.
So, you had asked me when you first brought this up to me, what until, this afternoon, when you said, hey, what about this for a topic? And there was something you were talking about was, what do you feel about skepticism? And the first thing I said is, I tell people question everything, question authority, make sure it fits within you, and whatever it may be, question it. Okay. And that's what's going to start bringing some honesty back. And I believe the AI is what's fueling a lot of this crap across the country right now. All right. Is because certain things in certain people look like the world's coming to an end. In other, it's not. It's like, oh no, everything's, coming up roses. Well, if we're blowing shit up, everything ain't roses,
Right.
So, I get it, but
we started a war in two separate countries. I think we've got a problem.
Yeah. Perspective.
Right.
Oh yeah, this is great. Not unless you're that guy going, what's that bright glow in the sky?
Yeah. You hear that? What's that? As it.
Yes. Hey, look, a falling star. Boom.
You hear that whistling? What is that? As the missile comes flying at you.
Yeah. Yeah. When we lived in Florida, I lived right there by used to be Patrick Air Force Base, and now it's Patrick Space Force Base.
Right.
Okay. And I used to laugh because they'd come in and do training there a lot of times up and down the river or whatnot. And I'd be like, man, I can't imagine what it would be like to hear that off in the distance and knowing they're looking for your ass.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. I got to tell a funny story. I don't know if I ever told you this. Did I ever tell you about when I first moved to Florida and the shuttle was coming back in and broke the sound barrier?
No.
So we just moved from New York, me and my ex-husband, and we're in our place, and we've got the windows open. It's night, so and you guys got to understand, coming from New York, we didn't have like AC, so it took me a really long time to learn how to use the air conditioner. Like, we opened up the windows and we dealt with the heat, and that's how we did things. So we had the windows open, the fan going, whatever, and it is the middle of the night, dark out, and all I hear bam, bam, and I roll off at the one side of the bed and hit the floor, and my ex-husband rolls off the other side of the bed and hits the floor, and we're like army crawling. What the fuck is that? Like somebody, it sounded like somebody was shooting a shotgun, like a huge freaking elephant gun at the house. I'm like, what is that? Is somebody getting shot? What the hell is going on? We had no idea.
Right.
I had never, ever in my life experienced that. I lived in New York. We had no sound barrier breaking or anything like that. Scared the ever-loving hell out of me. I happened to look over at the TV because I am a TV sleep. I sleep with the TV on. It helps me sleep. And you could see the news where they're saying the shuttle was coming in for a land. And you can see it like as it's coming down. Oh my God. scared the ever loving hell out of me.
Yeah, I know. I don't know about where y'all were, but like
Kissimmee.
coming in, especially when they were coming into Patrick, okay,
We were in
or
Kissimmee.
at the Kennedy Space Center when they always try to land there first before they go to California. When they came in over that thing, it shook us so loud. You know, the windows were shaking. Like you said, you're like, holy shit, we're having an earthquake.
Well, I was
You
all the
know?
way in Kissimmee, and what is that? 45, 50 miles away from
Yeah,
Kennedy Space Center
yeah.
or Patrick or wherever, Jetty Park, wherever they're landed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's crazy. When I was a kid, and I want to say this was in the age of the Apollo missiles. And my dad had a store in Satellite Beach, so we could look up A1A and see the base. Okay. And whenever those missiles would go off, they were so huge. You know, everybody thinks these are great. I wish you could have been around for in that age when a rocket was a rocket. Okay. And the whole sound barrier, the whole thing, the buildings would shake and things like that. They had an F-14, and I think it was something like $2 million worth of damage in that day. There was a whole bunch of people affected because one of those F-14 fighter jocks, kind of like Maverick, okay, decided he'd go below 500 feet over the edge of the ocean. And so really running the beach at Mach 1. And when he went by all these strip malls,
did he blow their windows
blowing
out?
the windows.
Yeah. Blow their windows out.
And my dad's actually cracked. And I was like, okay. So, yes. Well, how did we get that far off base?
I'm sure the military loved paying for that.
Yeah.
Re-windowing all those.
Exactly. So, there was enough people that brought attention that, according to the military, somebody got, disciplinary action or whatnot. But yeah, they never wrote a check. So like you and I, skepticism. We both believe in aliens and Bigfoot. Okay. If I'm wrong about that, let me know. But I know we both feel the same. Something's out there. Okay.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we're getting these crystal clear footage of ET and shit on the moon and lights and things like this. And you want to believe it. But with my skepticism of AI, I am always like, and then I tie that in. It's like, oh, isn't it amazing? We finally have AI, going well over 70% now into the better. Okay. And now all of a sudden we're getting all these clear campsite pictures and everything else. And I'm so.
Didn't they say that the moon, the broadcasted moon landing, was really just fabricated until we were able to actually get to the moon, right? So.
Well, and I believe this, and this is what I actually believe. I do believe a lot of video footage we showed at that time. Do I think we went to the moon? Absolutely. I firmly believe it. I have no doubt about it. But this is where that skepticism and use some common sense. Okay. We're back in what, 60s,
Right.
when that actually happened. Okay. What was our communications like back then? I remember when a radio wouldn't go from, when CBs became the hottest thing and you had to work skip to talk to somebody in Orlando. Okay. And here we are talking to people on the moon. I think they pre-filmed a lot of it. Okay. Because they didn't know what type of communications we were actually going to have. Okay. How clear it was and everything else. And yes, there are errors in some of the footage, but I think that's why. Okay. Is that making any sense?
I think they filmed it in a studio, and then because they weren't able to get there when they said they could, but they eventually got there. I mean, obviously, they eventually got to where they needed to be, just not in that time period.
Yeah.
Later.
Well, and I don't think it was even so much of a time period problem, but the lack of ability to communicate.
Yeah.
Because there's so much things. There's a reason it was actually political, all right, that under, was it Kennedy or somebody that started it, then it went to Johnson, was the VP, okay? So 2 deals were made with the big wigs. That's why we launched from Florida, okay?
Landed in Texas.
And then the minute it clears the tower, it flips to Houston, okay? Because both those states wanted those jobs. They needed this, everything like that. So, but why is it we're flipping back and forth? And now I think in today's world, the communications have gotten so much better. That's why we see so much from like Musk and all these other people. They're actually able to go and come and all that right from, Cape Canaveral. So, all kinds of things go into these factors, and you can't take anything at face value. Does that make me a skeptic? No. It actually gives me critical thinking skills to say, okay, what if this is film footage that was created? Did that mean the whole thing didn't happen? No. So logically, to me, it'd be like, you better have some backup footage, okay? And I think somebody made an executive decision. There's going to be 6 million people or however millions of people watching this. Run the footage, okay? Because they wanted to show we were on the moon. And so that's, yes, I think part of it was filmed, but yes, I think we went. So, and that upsets a lot of people.
I believe we went to the moon. I just don't believe we went to the moon when they say we went to the moon.
And that very well could be. That very well could be. Because now we're hearing from some of the astronauts, things they were sworn to secrecy to about extraterrestrial activity, things like that. And now they're actually coming out of the woodwork going, yeah, there was some weird shit, and that's my Reader's Digest version of their testimony. Weird shit's out there, So
it's meme that I post every now and then again, and it's Dorothy and Alice in Wonderland sitting next to each other, and Alice goes to Dorothy, "I've seen some crazy shit, man." And Dorothy's like, "Word, man, I feel you."
What's funny is, again, if certain people say it, or certain organizations say it, if certain ministers say it, people just want to jump right in. And now people are even double checking Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I basically was like, there's my answer man for physics. Okay. And then I'm listening to him talk about extraterrestrial activity, and he just he's like, no need for them to come here. He's preaching this like gospel. He said it would be like us studying an earthworm. And when he said that, I was like, that kind of makes sense. But then I went, wait a minute. We study fossils. We study earthworms. Okay. We're learning about organisms. So you can't just, he's starting to put a lot of his own personal agenda and personal feelings in there rather than educated things. I would have listened to him more if he'd have said, it's possible, but highly unlikely. Okay. Now let me hear your idea of why. Right. And then I get the people on the other side of it that think there's a spaceship hovering over us, 24/7. They're in the stars, and we're channeling Palladians and all this stuff. And I'm not saying they don't exist, okay? But my skepticism is going to be, and they chose you, okay, as their mouthpiece. You've got 10 viewers, on your YouTube. If I wanted to get the word out, I think I would have made an appearance to, I don't care if it was Ozzy Osbourne, somebody, and said, let's do something. Even Ozzy would have been like, holy shit. Everybody would have listened and been like, what the?
Yeah, I could see that. But, on the being devil's advocate for that train of thought is, well, why wouldn't you grab somebody like you and me? Because we walk among the little people. We are the little people. So why wouldn't you have one of us be the one of those mouthpieces?
And you know what? That makes total sense. I'm open to it.
You know, I mean, but as you're saying that, I'm laughing because look at the thing a couple of years ago where I said to you, I just said it to you the other day when we were talking on the phone. Like, do you remember when like QAnon came out and everybody was like, they're doing this and they're doing that and all this, and you and I were like, this is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in all my life. And sure as shit, all of a sudden, we're finding out that some of that stuff was actually true. Not all of it, but well, maybe all of it, but there's my skepticism. But some of it that you and I were like, that is nonsense.
Right.
It's actually true. Right.
My biggest fear in that whole QAnon thing was people do not realize, how much of a human trafficking is going on right here within the United States. And if you started talking about it, the way they were talking about it and the radical stuff they were trying to get people to swallow, was, you know what? We had a serious topic we needed to be discussing, but Wayfair is not selling children in a dresser. I cannot go on, that kind of shit. And there was even people being arrested because they said some Pizza Hut, because I was looking it up, may have done it on a show, where Pizza Hut it was like Pittsburgh or somewhere, had children locked in a basement, and this poor guy listened to it, thought it was real, lived in the town, and went with his firearms and went to take over Pizza Hut. And they had to bring him down in the middle of the street and everything else. And you're like, okay.
So, we're talking about this and just interesting. And this is where we get off on tangents, guys. Sorry. But I don't know what I was reading or listening to or looking at the other day. But, and again, I don't know if it's true or not, but they were saying that there was an island in what's Lake Michigan? Is that the big lake? That big lake, Lake Michigan in Michigan? Like, it's humongous.
I know they're there, Lake Michigan, Erie, all those big ones.
Get to Canada, that lake. Well, I guess there's islands in that lake, and apparently, John Benet Ramsey's grandfather, right? So her father's father used to help traffic young boys to this island for whatever you can think of. And I found that very interesting because everybody talks about how all this stuff has sort of been handed off from generation to generation to generation. So now we're talking about the Ramseys, who are an affluent family, right? Blah, blah, blah. And here's the grandfather was a pilot or something, and he would pilot these kids on his little plane from mainland to this island. To me, that's crazy,
Yeah.
And I can tell you, like, how long ago was it? Like 5 years ago, with all that QAnon crap started really like going ham.
Yeah.
Back then, I would have been like, that is crazy. You know what I mean? Lake Superior. Thank you, Donna. Thank you.
Yeah. Like Donna said, I question everything.
Yeah.
Like-minded, Donna.
I do too, because now you never know. I mean,
right?
Because you don't know. You can know somebody your whole entire life these days and not even realize what they're involved in or what they do or who, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, absolutely. And that's one, because it's only been 5-6 years, and even just stronger lately as I watch things unfold. Okay, that where I'm in, that maybe things aren't as far, when everybody was like, oh, there's a shadow government, there is, something underground and everything. It was through Epstein. And I did on my show, I did in the thing, there's an Epstein video that I did with Tara. All right. And I start realizing, you know what? If you look at the Bush family, if you look at how all the stuff was orchestrated, okay, and the Bush is one of those power families that had been in control. And when you start seeing, and you take all the wackiness out of it, eating children or whatnot, I'm sure somebody out there has eaten a child, okay? Especially some of the children I know, I might would have offered them up. Yeah. But when you look at what's going on, okay, this has really strengthened my belief in believing in a shadow government, that it has nothing to do, because shit happens no matter which party you're in, who's in power, shit happens. And I believe one setting the other up because of how the finances shift back and forth, which directly relates to the stock market and interest rates and who benefits off of that.
Do you remember the movie Trading Places?
Yeah, but it's so long ago.
Well, so the whole premise of the movie were these two really, really insanely rich brothers had a bet that they could take this guy, this homeless guy, and make him into this bigwig, and take the bigwig and just ruin him completely. Like, kind of have them switch places, literally, and because of the money, they were able to do that. But they were also pork bellies, I think it was what they were trading. So, right. But they were also sort of manipulating pork bellies or whatever they were. And of course, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd come in and they blow that whole thing out of the water. But that's when you say shadow government, that's what I think of. I think of people like the Rothschilds, who have such an ungodly amount of money, more money than you and I could even ever fathom. Like, and what are they doing with that? I mean, because we know it's been proven that they funded World War II on both sides, right? So what are they doing? How are they manipulating our government as we, and now as time goes on and we have more and more billionaire and trillionaire people, Bruce says I bought another 2 weeks. I'm not sure if it's because I'm talking about the Rothschilds or if I talked about Trading Places. I'm not sure which one it is. But at any rate, now we have so many more billionaires. I mean, isn't Musk almost a trillionaire?
Yeah, I believe so. Or billionaire, something like that. It's massive amounts of money.
So you're looking at all these people with this crazy amount of money, which I don't even know how you tally that much money. Like where do you house that much money? Like how do you maintain that much money? So, but I really believe that it's these people who are pulling the puppet strings all around, and you don't see them and you don't think about them because they very quietly just sit in the background with their money doing their thing, whatever their thing is. And you and I don't pay attention to them, because why would we? We can't even relate to them on any level. other than like, excuse me, sir, can I take your jacket and hang it up in the, you know what I mean? And
Right.
hang it, you know, or whatever. But yeah, it's wild.
Right. And you know, one of the things that I think of with this, and I saw this again on my news feed, but then I started watching actual news, and it was this guy from Europe, and I don't know who he is, all right, but he said, you know why Donald Trump disrespects us so much? And I thought, oh, I'm gonna perk up because I didn't know he did. And then I started listening to his comments to all these different European countries. He said, because we've turned into a bunch of wuss. He says, look who Donald Trump respects: China, the guy from North Korea, and Putin.
Right.
Okay. Why? Because they're not going to take any shit. So he knows who to befriend in a whole power thing. Okay. And that's the reason I think it's global. If you take somebody that has the money of Rothschild, like you said, he could be funding how many of the lobbyists, okay,
Right.
from different shell companies. And shell companies are not illegal. A lot of people think they're illegal. They're not, okay? It's just different places for them to put money as a business and get tax deductions, all right? So if he's got $500 million in two companies, and he puts one company on the left side of the aisle and one company on the right side of the aisle, okay, and then pays lobbyists from each company on both sides, Rothschild's making a mint because now he's got all the tax write-off for each of those businesses, and the expense of those lobbyists are all write-off, okay, as personnel for that company. So when you start thinking in those terms of, wait a minute, it's not as far-fetched as it seems.
Right.
So my thing is, everybody keep your eyes and ears open. Don't get locked in, because there was one point I would have said, y'all are all nuts. You know, y'all are all nuts. This couldn't happen. Ooh. And then when you have somebody in the military that's active and you hear what's going on in that shit, you're like, okay. Yeah. And there's some stuff I just can't talk about because I was asked not to. But I mean, some crazy ass shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, so skepticism is a good thing, but it should keep us talking, but talking in keep a sane voice about you. All right. And I do think some of what some of these people are saying in QAnon now might have been correct in some things. Okay. But we sounded so crazy.
Right. They were so radical about it that it, you know, when you come off so unhinged,
yeah,
about things, you know, nobody really takes you serious, right? I mean, it's, what is that, the duck, the sky is falling, you know?
Yeah, Chicken Little.
Chicken Little. Yeah, Chicken Little. Okay. But I mean, you know, you come off sounding just, and I get it's because you're, you know, you feel like you need to get your point across, but
right,
sometimes, you know, you've got, but yeah, I don't know. I believe in skepticism, you know.
yeah,
Even when I'm doing my thing, my spiritual thing, I will always be like, well, you know, why does it have to be at a full moon? Why does it have to be on a Wednesday? Why, you know, like, what? I don't believe. I'm not sure that that's true. I just think that blah blah blah. And people will come at me talking about, well, you can't just do any old thing any old way. You know, it's about ritual and tradition and this and that. And it's like, all right, whatever.
yeah.
You do you, and I'll do me. And if I get struck by lightning, that's my issue to deal with, right? You're not getting struck because you did it right. I'm getting struck because I did it. That's my problem, not yours to worry about.
Exactly. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's on me, not you.
Right.
You know? But that's where, again, even when we're talking about religion, is it good to be skeptical in religion? The minute a pastor, preacher, priest, rabbi, whatever says you need to believe this because I have studied this and said where it's true, I would run like hell. Because I learned that from being around so many preachers, all right, and being that quiet kid. Remember, we weren't allowed to talk at the table when the adults were talking. And if these kids today would shut the hell up at the dinner table and take their freaking phones away from them, all right, I'll get off that perch, and make them sit there and listen, they might actually learn something. You know, they might actually.
Like, Rob.
What's that?
You're sounding very boomer-like. See,
Yeah.
Kids today, get off my lawn.
Oh, shit. Yeah. You know, get off my lawn. Yeah. And I'm not that way, but you do see why. And I give this. I went from my parents being middle of the road, okay, to 15 years later, what I call radicalized,
Yeah,
all right, where he actually became a preacher, everything else or whatnot. You know, and I tell millennials and other people, you know, Gen Xers, Gen Zers, all this. Do you have the same thought process at 18 that you had at 15? Well, of course not. I'm an adult now. Well, actually, you're not. Your brain doesn't start growing until you're 25. But now, so I asked my 30-year-old, do you think the exact same way you did at 25?
Yeah, no.
Well, no, you might be along the same lines, but points of view changes because you start stepping into different ages of your life where different things matter.
Right. Do you think the same way now that you have kids that you did before you had kids?
Right.
Do you think the same way now that you're married than before you were married? Do you think the same way now that you've gone through 4 years or 8 years of college versus, before you were, when you graduated high school, or even in your freshman year of college,
right,
or your sophomore year of college, you think differently because you experience things, and then you learn more and more stuff through that experience, right? But yes, Cynthia, you're right. There is a difference between teaching and brainwashing. You're absolutely right.
Big difference.
I find in organized religion, they are, even in the Catholic part of it, because you're talking about Baptist. Even in the Catholic part, it's like you've got to, this is the Bible and this is the word of the Lord, and that's it. That's, this is how we interpret it. Therefore, this is the way it is. And there are so many things within Catholicism that I always found so strange, like having to be baptized to remove the original sin of the mother and the father. What does my parents banging have to do with me? Because that's what the original sin is, right? I mean, obviously. Right. But what does that have to do with me? Why do I need to be baptized and be cleansed? I had nothing to do with that. Nothing to do with that.
What a lot of people get confused about that with christening and all that stuff or whatnot is, man, I can get off in so many directions here because I'm hell on them. My big thing is, remember how I always tell people, know what you believe and know why you believe it. Right. Even if it is, I know I believe this because this is just what I believe. I have faith in it, and I think this is correct. You want to be that way? That's fine, but know what you believe and why you believe it because of this. How many times did people look at the Bible, all right? And now we've found scrolls that were literally became the Bible, all right? But we found scrolls that were buried so deep or locked away that were written at the same time.
Yeah, they left them out because they didn't like what they had to say.
And some of them, they were never found. Okay? Right. some of them, they were never found, and we're finding things now. And we've got panels of human beings deciding on what needs to be in the Bible. And I noticed in the Christian side, whether you go from Christianity all the way down through any of them, okay, nobody said, oh, we need a radical edition of the Bible. Okay. Jesus Christ, we get a radical edition of our cell phone every freaking 3 months, you know? So, but a biblical book that we are changing. But the reason the christening thing is, it talked about in the Bible and what your sin has to do with your parents' sin. Okay. Listen up, but this is for real. There's passages, and I wish I could give you the scripture and verse, but I can't. But there are passages where it says the sins of the father will be laid upon the feet of the son. Okay. So, and you got to remember in that day, you know, women were women. They were there for our pleasure, you know, whatever. Not saying I believe that, but that was it. So everything's written in the masculine. Okay. Kind of like the Latin language. Everything's based around the masculine when they first wrote it. Okay.
Imagine that. Ladies, are we surprised?
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's the Latin X movement, you know. I was like, what the hell is that? So I talked to somebody, and you're right. If me and Bruce are there, somebody will walk up and go, oh, look, two amigos. Okay. If you and Gillian are talking, they would say, oh, look, two amigas. All right. If you and I are talking, they're going to go two amigos. The masculine always comes first. So from that scripture from the Bible from way back will be visited upon the feet of the son. Then the question arose, okay, and it was through Jesus when one of the apostles was asking Jesus, okay, what about children, okay? And he said they still lived under the law of grace until, and this is why the Jews, all right, have manhood, the bar mitzvah, bas mitzvah, okay, at 13, until you became accountable. So in the Catholic faith, number one, if I teach you you've got to be christened to be covered until you reach the age of accountability, which is another big event. So their first confession.
Okay. 13, you make your confirmation. You make your confession in second grade. You make your confirmation in
right.
seventh.
So now we have not only grown our Catholic army, okay, members, things like this. Generally, for those ages, if you're having your child christened, you're making sure that little shit is there every Saturday, every Sunday, whatever service you're going to, okay? And we're giving money to the church, okay? That's where the whole christening thing came in and why people pick the names of saints. So, you know, they would name them after the saints or somebody close in their family or whatnot. But that's what the christening is about. It's supposedly to keep them safe. All right. Until they make their first confession and then they eat the bread and all that. And so then it goes on from there. I could go on for hours. And people think I hate Catholics. I do not. Okay. But a lot of Catholics I talk to ain't Catholic. They just don't know it. Okay. They don't know it. When was the last time you went to confession? Oh, I talk straight to God. Then I got news for you. Okay. Catholic's not a bloodline. All right. When they check DNA, it's not going to come up with, oh, he's a Catholic.
He's a Roman Catholic. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, things like that. So it's one of those things where, which brought me into my skepticism in religion. Well, why is everybody else wrong, but this one's right?
Right.
You know, how did things get so far out of whack? And one of the things I tell people, if a preacher tells you and he doesn't back it up with chapter and verse, right away you should be like, wait a minute. Okay. Need to find this for myself. All right. Number two, if he does back it up with chapter and verse, you need to read the whole freaking chapter.
Right. Not just the snippet.
Everybody on the right says, everybody on the right says, oh, they took his statement out of context. Guess what? Everybody on the left goes, oh, they took their statement out of context. Well, guess what? I watched too much of that in Christianity when somebody especially didn't know how to defend their stance. And what really made it aware to me is when my second wife, Melanie, and I got married, no kids, thank God. Okay. We decided we would go to the Methodist church. We both grew up in Melbourne. We knew too many people. We had 1,000 people at the wedding, and the only place that we knew that could handle that kind of crowd was Methodist church, big, huge cathedral, blah, 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 blah. So while we're there, he's asking me, hey, why don't you start coming to our church? And I'm like, okay, well, what do you believe about this? And he'd reach into his desk and pull out a book. Here's our stance on that. And I'm like, no, I'm asking you what you believe. No, I have to give you what the Methodists say. So it's not just Baptists, okay?
No, well, but Catholic priests are that way. You got to say what the Bible says, or how the Pope rules, or whatever.
Yeah, the doctrine, and so yeah, it's all crazy. So skepticism in trying to prove things, a lot of times they prove they don't know what the hell they're talking about. That's why I tell people, if you want to know something about the Bible, you can look stuff up. There's concordances, different things like that, and find out who was this chapter written for? What was it written for? What was the purpose? Who was it written to? Like Paul wrote to the Church of Corinthians, and now there's 2 books in the Bible, 1st and 2nd Corinthians. It's all a letter to a church. And that got blown out of the water because what it was, the 1940s, 30s, 50s, 60s, there's a section in there that says woman shall keep silent in the church. So I'm sitting there going, well, what about, I started doubting a lot of stuff early. What about all of our Sunday school teachers?
Right.
And my mom defended it by saying, not enough men will do it, so we have to get in to take it done. I'm like, okay, so you're going to override scripture. I got it. Okay. And then what I did was when I started hearing this over and over and over again, as I became older, I found out the church at Corinth had an issue, okay, when you start reading the whole thing, and it was having one of the first church splits. And Paul wrote to them because the women were running around doing backbiting, things like this. Not that the men weren't, okay? But that was a big issue in that church. And what he was saying is, when you come to church, come to church. You don't come here to talk about, Bob, and he was drinking over here the other day. Supposed to be here to worship God. That's it. That's the sole purpose. All right. And so I'm like going, okay, so there's that rule that I was taught my whole life, out just to, you get what I'm saying. So you get me going on this shit, I can go all day long, so.
I hear you.
Matter of fact, I've got a whole TV show on the wall up here, two seasons or 3 seasons of episodes about this stuff that I'm trying to figure out how to do it. Okay. So,
right.
But.
So I got a question for you. I've been coming across a lot of people who are using Psalms as spells. They're saying that Psalms is really just a book of spells.
Which one? Psalms?
Psalms.
All right. What, according to all this, and again, way right-wingers say Psalms was written by David, okay? Middle of the road will tell you that David wrote Psalms, okay, but not the whole book. There's now firm belief that these are all picked up, and Psalms are supposedly, again, David was a harpist, a musician, okay? And the people that contributed to it, these were songs that sound a lot different in Hebrew, okay, than they do in English, okay, about God, and the love of God and things like that. So that they're actually songs, okay? Anything is a spell. When I prayed for somebody, was it Cynthia, was it Monday night or something? And you were like, oh, that was a great spell. Oh, I meant prayer. If we think like this, okay, You and I've talked about it over and over. What's your intention?
Right.
What is it? A spell? A prayer can be a spell. I'm calling on a being that I believe exists but can't prove it, other than an old book and people that believe it too. All right. So again, yes, there are many things that can happen in the Bible. At the same time, it talks about not doing ritualistic prayer, saying the same thing over and over, like the Catholic Church, constantly repeating the Lord's Prayer, things like that. And they don't even go back and know. Most people don't even know why Jesus told them what the Lord's Prayer should be. Got to read the whole chapter of Matthew. I think it's Matthew chapter 6. And that's what's going on, is people are molding different things to their fit. And I don't care if you call it a spell. I don't care if you call it anything else, Rob, you can't channel spirit. Well, what does a preacher do? Holy Spirit gave me this message.
Right.
Okay. He gave me mine too. I didn't see anywhere in the Bible where it says Holy Spirit wouldn't talk to every one of us, So I use the word channel, okay, because a lot of people understand that now. All right. And you get where I'm going. I feel like I'm going on at 90 miles an hour. And this is one of the things. Cynthia, I use Psalms and Hoodoo,
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. There's certain, and I guess it depends on how it's translated, but if you look at it is definitely like to protect yourself or to strike somebody down or, that sort of thing.
Right.
If you look at the language that's used and I just found it very interesting. It never really struck me as that until somebody pointed, and it wasn't just one, it's several, it's a lot of them, so it never really, I just recently had like that holy shit moment where I was like, oh wow, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's really interesting when you look at it from this perspective.
right. And that's, again, it's that, take a look, don't just read the book of Psalms, do some study, okay, about who wrote it, who they wrote it for, what was it done, and learn about the whole book and what was its purpose.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. No.
Right.
No.
But, understanding it, because it changes everything, Revelation, everybody's talking about. There are things that are going on in today's world. Looking at Revelations and the way it was interpreted, I can start going, that scares the crap out of me. Okay. Do I need to keep a little more of an open mind about that? But then I got to look at it too. Revelations was written by, I think it was John the Beloved, when he was on the Isle of Patmos and he was doing that clearing walk, and he had fasted for like 14 to 20 something days.
So what was he doing? Eating mushrooms, picking plants while he's taking his walk and eating berries?
Right. How come everybody, in order to be socially inspired, had to starve themselves to death and go into a dysphoria or go into a euphoria?
Visions, hallucinations.
Yeah. Oh, I've got visions. I bet the hell you did. Mine would be a Big Mac or a Whopper, probably a Whopper. Okay. At that point, or I'd be looking at, different things going, oh, yeah. And then when you look at how they describe things, you got to remember the context. If they're seeing a helicopter in their dreams, because we do know some prophecies who was the main guy that everybody. What's that?
Nostradamus.
They definitely had some things, either very coincidental, but he was pretty on some things, but he's been pretty off some things too. So I think it's possible, okay? But I also think we can change our fate. And that is where, if they saw a helicopter, how would you describe it? And if it's shooting, oh my God, it's got these things shooting out of it. It's got a tail. It's a scorpion. If I'm in the year 00 BC, or you know what I'm trying to say.
Godzilla!
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So again, we need skepticism. And I think it's a self-defense mechanism where, again, the world, people with another power, and I wouldn't be surprised if when we discover the one world government, there's not some very powerful, the Pope, different preachers, things like that are being used by,
Of course they
by
are.
the underworld
Money,
government.
listen, money talks.
Yep.
And shit walks. And you're a cop. I don't know if you're ever a detective, but you're a cop. And what's the first rule? Follow the money. Always
Follow the money.
follow the money. If you follow the money, you're going to find what you're looking for.
In a homicide, in anything, even a dope deal, who stands to benefit the most? When you catch a low-level dope dealer, what do you try to do?
Oh, you're
Flip
trying
them,
to get to the
force
big
them
guy.
to start moving you up the ladder, following the money. Okay, in a homicide, first thing, who would have benefited the most from this guy dying? Whether it's money or whatnot, power,
Insurance, whatever. Yeah.
yeah, who would have benefited the most? And you're right. So, and again, the king of skeptics, a lot of the good law enforcement officers, the ones that are detectives or that should be, not all detectives are any good at it, but they've been there longer than anybody else.
Listen, I've watched enough seasons of NCIS that I can solve any crime.
Oh, Jethro. Yeah, Jethret. I'm sorry. Jethra. You're Jethra. Because Latinx says I have to call you a, with an O or an A, so you're female, so you'd be Jethra.
Jethro.
Yeah.
Lee Ray, Jethro.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So, oh my Lord.
Yeah, I hear you. I just think everybody, like you said, know why you believe what you believe, and if you don't know why you believe what you believe, then question why you.
Yeah. And that's it. Question it. Find out whatnot. And if it's too daunting, okay, listen to somebody who doesn't believe it and why they don't believe it, and listen to somebody who does believe it and why they do believe it. And a lot of times you can hear where they're trying to cancel each other out, but there's one or two points they overlap on. I never understood politics on any side. When a president brought on one of the people that was running against him or her, okay, as their VP, you just got done for 2 years telling me how much this guy sucked. All right. Because you needed to win it. But now that you're going to win it, I'm going to bring the same guy that I gave you all year round to tell me. Like I said, the Democrats and Republicans, we should never hear a word from them. They should just keep replaying their opponents' debates within amongst themselves. And then you'd be like, oh. And then you'd be like, what's that?
Said you're watching too much West Wing.
I've never seen it.
No?
No. Gillian keeps saying it's on one of them now. I
love it, but it may be a little to the right. Or to the left. Maybe a little to the left.
Yeah. So, and that's what I only watch things that make me feel good, murder and paranormal. Okay. We got the blood channel and we got the ghost channel. That's what we refer to them, things like that. And the ghost channel is starting to suck lately anymore. They can't do anything right. So,
shit over and over again.
Yeah. Yep.
You can only sit in a haunted house at 3 a.m. so many times.
Well, what we used to laugh at, again, you're there. Oh, we're getting some activity. And then when she starts going crazy, oh, we got to go. I'm like,
Right.
wait a minute. It's happening
Where
right
are you
there.
from?
And you're going to leave? Okay, so either you are a ballless or you just proved it's real, but wait 30 more seconds and get it on camera. How come none of them are ever wearing? It's always, I just saw this. In today's world, 4 GoPros, one on the back, 2 right here, 1 here. You got it all, bro. And you're not even spending $1,000.
Right.
You
Not
know?
anymore. What GoPros are like $150 each now.
Yeah, you know.
Like, oh, that's funny. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Well, it's 10 minutes after 9, Robbo.
oh my God. See, you got me going on a couple of topics and I couldn't shut up. So
I hear you. Yeah, so if you guys have any ideas or there's something you want to see or there's something you want us to do, we're more than happy to look into it. So if you have any suggestions, ping one of us or message us or whatever. And we'll
yeah.
see what we can do. We were just talking before the show that we thought it might be time for another practical application demonstration, but we're just not sure which way to go. So if you have any suggestions, let us know.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. We're ready to listen. And maybe if it's something that we don't know, it might be good for us to look up and we can all study it together. You know,
Yeah.
so just put whatever you're thinking about in there. We just try to steer away from politics. So,
Which
you know,
tonight we did an awful job.
yeah, we did. Right. I tried to include everybody. Okay. I don't like any of them. So, you know, with that thing. So, that, you know, that's it. And Cynthia, you have been talking to him, and that's okay. That's good. And anybody else has something, you know, come on with it. We want to hear it. Even if you disagree, it's okay. All right. You know, as long as you don't disagree for 45 minutes, you know, okay, we got it.
I disagree for 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
But
all
yeah.
right.
All right, guys. I think we're gonna wrap it up. And I think we got it. I think we made our point.
Yeah, I do too. Oh, let me do this real quick. From the week of the 26th, okay, I will not be on the air, and I may not even be on with Brigitte. If I am, I'm going to be on my new yoga system, you know, or whatnot. I've even taken myself offline on Tarot and Attitude and changed some hours because of the move. And the following week, we're probably going to be spending 3 or 4 days driving and getting some things set up. So it might be a couple of weeks. We're okay. Everything happened. And I'll try to touch bases and let everybody know. But we might be taking a 2-week moving back to Florida break, you know? So.
Well, maybe, I don't know. I don't want to promise anybody anything, but maybe in that 2 weeks, I'll try to be a little more live active and see if I can fill in some of that gaps.
Yeah.
I'm not Rob, so I don't do things the way he does them, but
that's
I
okay.
can try. If you need a fix, just let me know. Come on, Brigitte, give the
like I said, I'll have my other yoga thing. You know what I'm talking about. And you know, I'll try to get on, but some of the hotel rooms and things like that, you know, we're trying to get that Wi-Fi signal is a little nuts, especially with streaming.
I got you. I understand. Yep. Maybe I'll see what I can do about, like, maybe we can make one of those nights like a spell jar or just, I don't know. I'll have to think about it and see, you know, what can be done and hop on and do something like that. And that way, you know, it'll satisfy the practical application part that we were discussing.
Yep. So at any rate, there we go.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week. All right. So have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.